What's up guys, welcome to this review of Star Wars, The High Republic, Volume 2, The Heart of Drengir, the continuation of the High Republic Star Wars comic book series. So, the Drengir are a threat, the Nihil are a threat, but this book focusing mostly on the Drengir, as the title would make it clear. Not entirely though, because it's weird because this is an ongoing series, but the way this book is split, the way the volumes are split at least, isn't like a story arc. So the first book was very much a story arc about the Drengir being known and being discovered and then ending with a big moment. This book continues that, and then about halfway through it ends it, and then it starts a new arc. So it feels like, I don't know, it feels like the first half of this book should have actually been part of the last one, almost, and then they should have started something new. But yeah, it is what it is, and if you know it's an ongoing series, it's kind of alright if you are just going to binge read them all, rather than in the volume chunks like I am. So, what did I think of this? I think it was okay. One of the issues I've got with the comic books is that they are very fast-paced, they are very rushed, they aren't lingering on story moments. If this were a novel, for example, it would be much slower, you would get much more character moments, you would get to dive into the characters a lot more, you would get moments where they are just talking to each other, where they are finding out about their backstory, their history. There's none of that in here though. Instead it's just all right from one action set piece to the other, with a little maybe a few panels here and there where they are just conveying some sort of emotional element. Particularly about Skier, it's always about Skier for example, and Skier not that interesting character in my opinion, but hey, he's there. But yeah, this comic book very much emphasizing the action over the character, and I think that's maybe because the comic book compared to the main High Republic book series is aimed at a younger audience perhaps. It's hard to say exactly because there are two High Republic comic books. There's this one, the main one, but then there is a much younger audience, the High Republic Adventures, which has Yoda in it and stuff. And yeah, so I do think this is aimed at a younger audience than the main narrative books, but I also feel like now we're getting to the point where if you aren't following the main narrative books, then a lot of the stuff isn't going to make sense. There are characters popping up from the main narrative who have not even been introduced in the comic books yet. So this one, for example, you have Martian Rowe and Lorna D showing up at certain points, and it's meant to be these huge big moments. But if you've never read the main books so far, them huge big moments aren't going to be huge big moments. They're just like, oh, who's that character? They look cool. Whatever. Yeah. So there's that, and that's a bit of a problem here. So some of the story stuff is now relying on other things, and ideally you have to have read those other things, and ideally you're going to have read those other things, and I recommend you read those other things because they're better than this. But as someone who has read the other stuff, I do think that it helps that these are connected. It does mean that, hey, they're all important, they're all relevant, they're all going on at the same time in the same universe. So that's cool for me who's read those other things. Just, if you haven't, it might be a problem. Let's talk about the characters though. Actually let's finish talking about the story. The first half of the book is about the Drengir and wrapping up some things with them. I say wrapping things up. I'm not convinced they're wrapping that thing up. I think they're just putting it aside for now. And then they shift over to the Nihil again, where Keith Trennis, the main character of this comic book series, goes undercover. It's very rushed. We actually don't even see a real introduction as to her going undercover. It's like, oh, all of a sudden she's undercover. It's very abrupt and very quick. And I get what they're going for, but I just needed it to be expanded upon. Again, a book or a TV show would have done that, but the comic book just doesn't have the time to do that. It's really disappointing. But anyway, that's the story stuff. I'm glad they wrapped up the Drengir stuff. The Drengir, as I'm going to get into the character stuff, are very disappointing villains in my opinion. The Nihil, however, much more interesting, and that stuff really does stand out more in the second half of the book. So, the Drengir, very disappointing. They are very stereotypical, very one-note villains. They are just monstrous creatures who want to eat people. That's it. This book does introduce the fact that they have got this alien queen character who's the leader of all the Drengir. That's sort of interesting. They've also got a connection to the dark side of the Force, where Jedi who can hook up to them can actually see where the Drengir are and track them down and stuff like that. It's weird sci-fi fantasy stuff going in there. It taking Star Wars in directions which I'm always a little like cautious about. But yeah, the Drengir ultimately not that interesting. They're just there to be villains, so the Jedi can swipe their lightsabers and get some cool action scenes with. But they are very threatening. I will say that they're portrayed as being very dangerous, very threatening, very overpowering and overwhelming. So that's sort of cool. The Nihil, however, are much more like gangsters and criminals, and they're given a bit more personality, a bit more attention, a bit more interest. This time, the second half of the book really does come in and show us some of the higher ups in the Nihil. If you've read the books, you'll know these characters already, and the comic book isn't really interested in introducing those. They just kind of show up and say, oh, they're here. So if you don't know these characters, they're kind of just there looking cool or whatever. So that's again a bit disappointing. Again, talking about comic books and the limitations of comic books. You really do have to have read the main Star Wars novel series to get the most out of this, I feel. And that's becoming much more disappointing the more I think about it. But I do like how it does show that the Nihil are a larger organisation, how you have got the higher ups, you've got the Eye, you've got the Tempest Runners, and then you've got the Storm beneath them. You do get a sense that there's much more to the Nihil here in the comic book forms. They're not just these like group of smugglers or criminals or whatever. They're not pirates exactly. There's much more to them than that. They're a huge organisation. Keith Trennis, I've already mentioned her. I think she's still an interesting, cool character. The book is less interested in exploring her this time around than compared to the first volume, but I do like how it shows her determination, how it shows her personality. I think a really cool moment is her focus and determination to save her master Skier, despite all the odds, despite the dangers of doing such a thing. I think that really highlights just what her character and what the Jedi, in her opinion, is all about. She is willing to bend the rules. She does have potty mouth, she does have bad language and stuff, at least in Star Wars terms. So yeah, I like how she's not just this goody two-shoes hero character. She has got a quirky personality to her, and the book really does a good job highlighting that and highlighting her motivations and goals. So yeah, I like her a lot. But I do still want to see more from her. I do still want to find out more from her. I feel like we have just only touched the surface in certain regards. So, the last volume ended with Skier dead. Skier dead at the hands of the Drengir and so on, and then all of a sudden he's back. Bit disappointing. So yeah, one of the biggest things that I do not like about storytelling is if you kill a character, don't bring them back in such a cheesy, quick, easy fix way. Have their death mean something and keep them dead, or wait a while, then bring them back and have that mean something. And ultimately here, neither of those things happen. Instead, they just bring him back because they want to bring him back. And it kind of cancels out the big moment at the end of the last volume where he was dead. So yeah, very disappointing to see him back in such a way and such a cheap way. It doesn't feel deserved or earned. Very anticlimactic, basically. Avar Kriss, this is a character from the novels, the first novel at least. Her role has constantly been getting smaller and smaller as the series has progressed. And that's a bit frustrating because she is the main character of the very first novel. So I've constantly been under the impression that she was the main character of this story. Only now it turns out she's not the main character at all, and very disappointing because I liked her character a lot. So imagine it this way, imagine if the Star Wars trilogy introduced Luke Skywalker in the first film, only he was then just a minor character popping in here and there in the second and third film. That would be weird, wouldn't it? Well, that's kind of how it feels like with Avar Kriss at this point, because she just keeps showing up and she's very interesting, very engaging, and I like her character a lot, but she's never given much to do. And I think one of the reasons for that is because she is this very powerful, very influential Jedi, only if she keeps showing up, she keeps saving the day. She keeps having the right things to do, so you've got to kind of get rid of her in order to have a challenge for some of the other characters. So I kind of get that bit. But yeah, I do still want to see more of her. I do still want her to be a main character, a much more important character. What she does do here is cool and interesting. I just wanted more from her. And that's what I've got to say about Star Wars The High Republic Volume 2, The Heart of Drengir. I liked it. It's okay. Not as good as Volume 1, I don't think. But it is very action-packed. It is very fast-paced. I just wish they'd slow things down. I just wish there was a bit more diving into characters. And yeah. But what it is, it's enjoyable. You do have to rely on the novels though to get the most out of it though, to find out more about these characters. So read the novels, please, because they're good. Especially if you like this. If you've liked this video though, why not subscribe to my channel for more content like this, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Instagram Burton. Until next time though, thanks for watching.